500th edition, episode, segment, whatever you want to call it, of the Outer Realm. Woo! With myself, Michelle Desrochers, and Amelia Pisano. I can't even talk tonight.
That's
I know.
okay.
It's shocking. You think I've been drinking or something, but sadly not.
After the show. After.
We are broadcasting live here on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM and 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
So 107.7 FM in New Orleans.
Yep. And 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Somebody forgot to tell me. Okay.
It's new.
Wow. Thank you.
Tonight, we welcome back, actually, the alien hunter Derrell Simms to the show. And we will be picking up where he left off on his last appearance, which was like freaking mind-bending. Anyway, to say the least. So get yourselves ready and settle in, get your popcorn, get your drinks, whatever it is you need to, because you're not going to want to miss this episode. But in order to participate in the show, you all need to pop over to YouTube, United Public or Paranormal, rather, Radio Network. I'm really struggling tonight, and I apologize. Subscribe. But that is also where the YouTube chat room is. And that's the only way you're going to be able to interact with myself, Amelia, and Derrell if you have any questions. So maybe I can stop being tongue-tied. Too much new information. I think tonight.
You just threw me off guard. So it's like, no, what are you talking about? I thought it went with your, the struggle to speak thing. I'm like, what is she talking about? 105.3.
And she's correcting me. No, in New Orleans. Says, I know that's what I said, but after 105.3 FM,
like,
we are all growing. We are all growing. So, I think this is awesome. Zachman's in the chat room. Hello. Happy 100th episode. Thank you. Outstanding. So I'm just going to go in and accept whatever it is you're tagging me in, because I have to accept it for my people.
The show. I'm just tagging in the show, but yeah. So who else is having COVID hair struggles? Just saying.
Your brain goes to mush. Honestly, it's not like we don't do this like twice a week, and it should be just, coming through naturally, but it's just a darn struggle tonight. So, okay, adding to the profile. There we go, people. We're live. So, anyway, yeah, I'm really excited about tonight's show. Honestly, I've had more just UFO talk going on and aliens in the last week that it's becoming like almost mind-numbing, I guess, more than anything. And it's coming from people that I would like really not expect it from, who have had experiences or who are seeing things that they amazingly, I didn't think they could see. And I'll have to fill you in on that at another time, because I'm just like, what exactly did you just...
So, I think with everybody being in lockdown here, especially, that there's more and more people who are observant, and it's just like, wait a second, what was that kind of thing? But see, I don't get outside, so
I know, but
I haven't seen anything.
All through communication, like just through messages or email, and I'm like, this is just weird. But I mean, it all comes down to questions. Everyone's who is in the field, and I don't consider myself to be in that field per se. Like, I mean,
You're in it more than I am.
I've heard like, somewhat, but
literally and figuratively.
It's still kind of new for me, though, with at least delving into it.
Yes.
Kind of thing.
Yes, you yourself.
And some people are really relaxed with it, and they're just like, oh no, it's this or it's this. Or then you have a lot of new agers who are like, oh no, they're up on the mountain waiting for them, kind of thing. Or then then we've got Derrell, who I just love, because he comes in and goes, it's like, no, it's just crap. This is how it is. And it's just like everything he says makes sense. And then you're kind of like going, okay, see, that just makes a real whole lot of sense right there. Right? And then makes me start questioning my own experiences, going, What is that?
Things that make you go, we never, I
Yeah.
feel like we never have enough time with Derrell because he's just got so much information and so much experience and
I would keep booking him. I
research
think
and
he's still booked for
studies.
another one time after this. So
Yeah, I believe we're going to need it. But I do enjoy him. I enjoy listening to him. I enjoy
Mhm.
learning from him. And that's when he's on, I find myself more quiet because I just want to absorb everything like everybody else.
Mhm.
So,
Well,
yeah.
for sure. I always like as one thing, like we do get a lot of compliments about the outer realm, and I really am humbled when I have a guest say to me, you know what, I really had a good time. It's not like I thought it would be, I didn't feel like I was being drilled. I didn't have to really be 100% like turned on or switched on. um like it was I was just eased into it. I could just talk about it like we're just sitting at a table having a coffee, and I'm just like, that is really the feel that I want our guests to have. And
Mm-hmm.
I think our listeners love it because I get comments all the time. There's like, you know what? It's really relaxed. It's a lot of fun. Everybody jokes around, and yet the knowledge gets put out there, and they're still learning something, and they're still having a good time doing it. Listeners, fans, and guests alike. And that's really important because, the show has gotten just crazily popular, over the past year. And it's been sort of like, didn't see that coming. It's like, where the heck was I when that truck just dropped this on my lap? But
Wow.
I'm really glad. So, 100th episode, we get to share it with you guys, and we get to share it with Derrell. And thank you all for the support that you give us on the show. I mean, when you're having millions of listeners in a week, that alone, yeah, we just sit and go, what?
What is what?
I know. How many? But,
What is going on?
I
Yeah.
know. And we have amazing guests who come in their own unique ways and give us, their thoughts and talk about their research. And then we have listeners who come in with like amazing questions. And the listeners are what keep us all going. So thank you for that. And we will continue for hopefully a few hundred or thousand more episodes, however long you want to keep us. We will
We'll be
continue to
here.
deliver the goods, so to speak. So yes, it's really awesome. Oh, there he is. Speak of the devil.
There he
Daryl.
is.
Yay.
Hi.
How are you? We're not seeing that handsome face though. There we
There
are.
he is.
Oh,
Hi. How are
kind of
you?
scared
You
me
look
there.
great.
Looked
You
in
don't
the
look
mirror.
like you don't look like you've been in a lockdown at all.
Yeah,
You
and
look
that's a
great.
compliment.
Well, I haven't. Early. No.
I know.
How
Some
you
people
guys
refuse
doing?
to shovel.
Oh, we're we're
Good.
good. Thank you.
So we have a bit of a delay, I think. So yeah, well, we've been good. We're on lockdown, so we're not typically allowed to do anything up here in Canada right now. And the whole southern U.S. apparently is opening up, and we're just sitting here coasting along because I think our prime minister has just got his thumb up his rear end and can't figure out what he's doing.
I was
So,
thinking more like his head, but anyways. uh,
That's really sad. No, we're working on a TV program, and our people are film crew and everything. A production company are in Canada. I love working with Canadians. They are really honest, decent folks. It's
thank you. We're very
thank
laid
you.
back. I do a lot of film, and
and
it's always
politically.
been laid back. You Americans are hardcore. It's like, we're relaxed up here. We're just chilling. So,
Even in the
but
big
that,
cities, it still feels like the country here. It's a little different.
no, true. It's true. So, any idea when, I mean, you're filming now, and I guess that's probably been backed up a bit with COVID. Are you guys releasing soon, or where are you in your filming stage?
No, actually the virus has kind of got everybody held down, but
Mm.
we're hoping that in in this month that we'll be able to film, and we'll go ahead and film here in Houston.
Oh, fantastic. So I guess it's going to be a while then before we get to
It
get the
really
goods.
will.
That's okay. We can wait.
I just
Kind of. Yeah. So honestly, when you finished off, in your last segment, I'm just like, oh my gosh. And then I looked at where we had you booked, and I'm like, oh, we're gonna have to wait how long? So here you are, and we left off at angels. And I'm like, all right. And you said, okay, next time we're going to talk about angels. I'm like, okay. And I thought we had a few minutes to get started. We didn't. So now, of course, I want to pick up exactly where we left off because
Yeah, because
you had us hanging.
you had us hanging because your words were, and they're not what you think they are.
Yeah,
And you
that
just
didn't
left
help.
us. That was months ago.
That
It
didn't
was
help.
months ago.
correct. That's
It's
correct.
like the 80s
So
waiting
it
for
had to leave a
season 2 to
cliffhanger
come
there
on.
for you.
Yeah. We're like, did he just leave us hanging? I'm thinking he pretty much did. So the stage is yours. Angels are not what we think they are. What are they?
Well, actually, I was asked to go to speak to a ghost conference um, about 2 or 3 years ago, and I thought, gosh, all these people here are probably going to think I'm insane. When these UFO guys, and here they're at the ghost conference, and and some of the UFO people think the ghost people are like they're insane. And these are different points of view, and people often don't understand what it is they're looking at, so they just you know anyway, I had a lot of fun with them. I said, what I'd like to show you is some photography about ghost, and of course they said, oh yeah, that's you know, so then I said I would like to show you some photography on the UFO phenomena and show you the difference, because the signatures of each are different. They're radically different. And then I talked about aliens, ghosts, demons, and angels. And I said each of those entities have a different signature, and they respond differently. And so, anyway, it was a lot of fun. They said, "Will you come back?" And I said, "You want more of this? You're a glutton for punishment."
An awakening. Yes.
Really. So I enjoyed it quite a bit. But the thing that interested me, and especially, and I get this especially from consciousness oriented people in the UFO field. They asked the question, really angels? I said, no. And they're like, well, we think they are. And it's, well, everybody's got a brain. You can, most of them anyway. And, and I said, you believe whatever you want. Belief is like the length of your hair. You can cut it, dye it, do anything you want with it. And I said, I have to deal with the best evidence that I can possibly get to come to a reasonable decision. And I said, in rare cases where angels actually show up in a UFO phenomena, like an abduction is an example, the aliens can't get out of there fast enough. They are absolutely terrified of something holy, I guess, coming in there. And
I've heard that they really don't have any consideration for it.
And I'll give you an example of one, a real event that actually happened. This is kind of wild. It was in my own home, and I had a daughter-in-law. She wasn't my daughter-in-law then. She fled Brazil to get away from the alien. Basically, she thought if I moved to the United States, they'll never know where I'm at, and I got it made, and so on. Well, that didn't work out really well. So anyway, when she first came to our home and everything, she asked permission if she could stay here for a while until she kind of got settled in the U.S. And I talked to my wife. She said, of course. And it's okay. So Anyway, so everything was rolling along fine. Everything. She was helping me assemble my data for a book that people have been begging me to write for years, and I told them I just didn't have time. So anyway, I was going to go pick up my wife to eat the next day, and all of a sudden, my daughter-in-law, current daughter-in-law, she got real nervous, and she said, "If you guys go to a movie or anything, would you please call me and tell me?" And I said, "Okay." I was like, "What is this all about?" And so I shut the door, locked it, and went to eat with my wife. We were sitting down eating this really nice dinner, and all of a sudden I looked up and said, "Oh my God, they're on our home right now." And Doris said, "What?" And I said, "The alien is in our home right." And all the food, I mean, it was horrible. All the food on the anyway, and just scooped it all up and everything, grabbed it, and we ran outside, unlocked the car, got in, handed her all the stuff, and she's dropping stuff everywhere. And I raced as fast as I could get back to the house. And the fascinating thing about that was, of course, we compared notes later and found out what was going on. She, there were two entities in our home at the time, and most people in the UFO community would refer to them as a MIB, that sort of thing. Anyway, that's what started the ball rolling, so to speak, with her. But anyway, she the first thing that happened, that was the last event that happened with her. There's three other events, I think, really. The first event, she sensed something was wrong, and she went to bed. She was nervous that night. She went to bed, and next morning we all woke up, and she was crying incoherently, and Doris said, "What is the problem?" She said they came last night, and she said, I picked up a piece of firewood off your fireplace, and I was going to hit him to keep him from taking me again." And she said, "It scared me really bad and everything." She was crying and everything. And I said, "That's okay. It's okay. It's all over now," and all that. And that didn't work. She said, "You don't understand. In my case, they always come in threes. They'll come three times. This is the third month. On the third day at 3 in the morning, then they're going to come three times." They're coming to us. Well, great. I said, "I'd like to meet them anyway. I always like guests coming uninvited." So anyway, this really gets interesting. The next night, I was up about 2 in the morning, and I'm working on my computer and on some book stuff and everything. And then I thought, this is really weird. If this is true, and if they come in threes, in her case, this would be kind of dumb to lose this opportunity, because they're going to come another time. So why don't I do something neat? So I thought, okay. So I prayed about it, and I prayed, and this most wonderful peace that just passed all understanding came, that it's all okay. And I thought, I'll just go to bed. No big deal. And so I went to bed. Next morning, she gets up and she's crying, and it was horrible.
Wow.
And she said, "You said you were going to be up." And I said, I did say that, and I didn't do that. And I said, "Why are you crying?" She said, "I'm not crying for anything bad. I'm crying for something good." She said, "They did come, but something else happened." I said, "What?" She said, "Well, the entity came through the wall like he always does. And I picked up a firewood again. I was going to hit him, and he's backed away. He was afraid of me." She said, "Then something came through the wall that was so horrible." She said, "I did not know things like that existed. It was something in charge of him, apparently." And she said, "It was horrific." She said, "I was literally shaking, and I dropped the firewood. I was so scared. And I'm just literally shaking, and I don't know what to do. And because I've never seen this thing, I don't know what it is." And she said, "The most incredible she said, she's happy. She said, an angel came through the wall. And she said, the alien and the horrific creature that was in charge took off as fast as they could get out of there. They could not stand to be in the presence of this thing. Said it was unbelievable. It was wonderful, absolutely incredible. She cried and cried and she said, and I told her what I did, and I prayed about it and everything. And I got this peace that everything was going to be all right. And this apparently it was. I said, however, you said 3 times in a row. I said, I promise you, I'll be awake. I don't care who shows up. It makes no difference to me. I will be up, and I will tomorrow, 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to be there. And I was there, and in fact, I was there at 2:30, sitting next to her little pallet, and she sets up. Very rapidly breathing, and she's scared. And I said, it's okay, I'm here. Go back to sleep. And she lays back down and just goes into a deep sleep. Exactly at 3 o'clock in the morning, she sits up in slow motion out of a deep sleep, and she looks over at me and says, they know you're here. And I said, yes. And I'm sitting there with my Japanese sword. Had over $1,000 worth of work done on the blade alone. It is, you can shave with it, and I intend to give somebody a close shave that night. And I said, I know that they know, and I said, but now they know that I know that they know that I know. So now they know. And so one of these days,
sadly, I understood that.
Yeah, I don't know if they could or not, but it was funny.
I understood it. That was the scary part.
These days they're going to be on the wrong side of that wall, and I'm going to be here. And I said that's going to be the saddest day of their life, because that's going to stop. So anyway, that was the first case of an angel actually showing up in that case, and I never told her a thing about any of it. It just occurred in the abduction event. We've had rare events where angels actually showed up, and especially when they were not told or asked for. I mean, it was just it's not like you command them or something. I mean, when they show up, it's a total surprise to everybody, literally.
And what's your definition? What's your definition of an angel?
Okay, looking at ancient literature and biblical, Vedic, and all kinds of other, not and to generically, I think most people would agree with this definition. People may have different views, but generically, an angel is something that was created by God and is therefore, and actually the word angel, angelos, in the Greek simply means messenger. That's exactly what it means. And in the Hebrew, it gets into more detail, and there are different stages and kinds of them, and so on. And I mean, like Michael, the archangel, Gabriel, and Uriel, and so on and so on. But there are also, according to that narrative, a good portion of these entities fell. Some people use the description of a third of heaven fell and left under an incredible being, really. And people kind of describe me as like, he's a fallen creature. There's no doubt about it. He's very smart, very brilliant, and everything else. But he was also one of the most beautiful creatures ever created by God. The description of him is incredible. It describes, when he speaks, he says there's tabrets in his neck. Tabrets means it's like a symphony of music when he speaks. I mean, he could sway. Well, he swayed at least a third of heaven, according to the story, to go with him, to leave, and they fell. And as a result, these are sometimes referred to as some of the watchers, the fallen watchers that caused interbred with women in the 6th chapter of Genesis and other places, and caused So in that vein, in that description, I'll use that as a baseline, so to speak. So there are good and evil angels, and of course, the real question should come up to most people, even if they're discussing aliens or anything else, is there a good and a bad aspect to that? And with the good angels, with real angels, so to speak, the ones that are of God, so to speak, there are ways to test these. And true angels will never accept worship, never. Fallen ones will. They will accept worship. They will. It's if you even have a slightest sense of spiritualness about you, you should be able to pick that up very quickly. That there's something seriously. Like in the case of Katya, when that angelic being came through the wall, those two guys boogied as fast as they could get out of there. They didn't have to ask anybody. They knew whose side was on whose side, and they got out of there. But in her case, she knew instantly. She was in great tears and in awe of this wonderful angelic being. There is so powerful.
So it's definitely a biblical thing. Like it's not a extraterrestrial thing.
No, the extraterrestrials didn't stay around long enough to figure out anything. They just got out there.
No, for sure. I like to clarify because you know what? Some people don't believe in angels and demons, and they believe that everything is extraterrestrials. You have your extremes on both sides, I guess. Those who won't acknowledge ETs, and you got those who won't acknowledge anything that religion labels. So.
Well, what's funny about Katya's case is she's not particularly a quote unquote a spiritual person. She was not like reading the Bible when it happened or anything. I mean, she's not interested in that sort of thing.
Sure.
She was as shocked, more by the angels showing up than she was for the aliens. She kind of expected them because she knew they were coming. You know, 3 times in a row that was going to happen. Yes. And when the angels showed up, she was not prepared for that at all. She was already disarmed and shaking and horrified, and she knew it was over for her.
You never put the two together. This is the first time. Like, I'm still learning a lot. I'm just dipping my toes into this last year, but I've never heard of an angel and an alien in that way, and it kind of gives me some comfort, to be honest, that there is someone that supersedes them that can.
The reason I think that's good is when I went to Brazil after this event, went the second time, there was a consciousness leader down there who he's a Jewish guy, and he's very into spiritual things and angelics. When he found out that I had had a number of angelic experiences in the UFO thing, he went bananas. I mean, he stood in line. There must have been 75 people in line waiting to talk to me about UFOs and evidence and alien implants and all this stuff. And he waited. Dr. Jacobs was one of them, is waiting in line, and he spoke to me for a while. And then this guy came last, and he said, "I can't believe I waited 2 hours to talk to you." And I said, "Well, some people are worth it." And we just were laughing. And
takes a bow.
He says, "I want so that started that conversation.
Wow.
He was the one that interested him. That there were two, that story of the girl, and the second one that interested him a great deal was, he said, "Your senior investigator, who is an abductee." I said, "That's true. His name's Dale." He said, "He's an engineer." I said, "That's correct." And he says, "Therefore, he's pretty observant and a good, credible witness, you know, so to speak, being an engineer, scientifically minded, and all that." Said I understand you had mentioned in general that he had an angelic experience as well. I said, "He did." And I said, "This one, parts of it was witnessed by other people." And he said, Dale's father had passed away, and he was on a flight to go visit his dad for the funeral. And then on the way back, he said something strange happened. He said the pilot came on the airplane and told everybody over the radio. He said, there's a turbulence ahead, and we're going to run into it. So we're going to be about 10 minutes later. So don't worry about it. And they said, okay, it'll be a little rough. He said, anyway, we're flying along there, clouds out there. It's real pretty. And he said, Derrell, the strangest thing happened. He told me what he did remember of the event. And then after that, which he was very clear about it, but I wanted to make sure that I got every little detail. So afterward, I hypnotized him and to see if there was any additional information he may have missed. In his chair, looking out the window, and all of a sudden the engine stops on the airplane. All the sound stops. And under hypnosis, he looks out the window and he giggles. And I said, what's so funny? He said, and he looks at his watch and he says, it keeps on clicking. And he thought since the motion stopped, time should stop. In other words, he's scientific. That's the way he thinks. And he said, there's one kid that was running up and down the aisles. Everybody just couldn't stand him. He's screaming, doing all kinds of weird stuff. He said, everybody is like stopped like this. And
wow.
It's like a photograph stop. He said, the only one's not moving is me. They're all stopped. And he said, I'm still able to move.
That's really unusual.
And then he said, he goes, he starts breathing real deeply. And I said, what is that? And he said, I don't know. And I said, well, is it an encounter, an abduction, a contact event? And he says, no. And he keeps gasping and he keeps looking up, and right in the middle of the walkway there in the aisle of the airplane, a being manifests and appears. And he's just in awe. Look at him. He just overwhelmed, just like Katya was. Overwhelmed, in awe, stunned. I mean, he's seen several different kinds of aliens. It's not like he doesn't know what they look like or what that event's about. He does.
Yeah.
And so he says, I said, does he say anything? And he says, yes. And he's still stunned. He says he's going to help you. I said, so what I do at this point is try to get Dale to hallucinate in his hypnosis. In other words, if I can get you to hallucinate, there's a good chance you're not in memory. You're fabricating information, either on purpose or otherwise. And so I said, so he's going to help you. He said, no, he's going to help you. He said, he's going to help you. I said, that's what I said. He's going to help you. So he's going to help you, and that's really good to know. So what does that have to do with anything? And then he got mad at me. He said, no, he said he's going to help you. Derrell, you. I said, okay, I finally got it straight. And then he just keeps looking just in awe with his mouth open. And I said, and he goes on describing some things about it. And then all of a sudden, he said, started to disappear. He's after the message, he was leaving. And he said, and he looks, his head jerks over and he looks out the airplane and the clouds are still going by. And he said, that is so weird. Everybody's acting normal. The kids run around screaming and everything like normal. And nobody realizes that they were all frozen in time there. And anyway, so Dale's telling me this story, and I've got the camera on at his home while he's telling the story. His wife is sitting there. My wife is sitting there. And then we're recording the story on film. And then remember the statement I made, what does he say? And then Dale tells me all the things he said. We played the tape back and rolled it over. Everything worked the tape perfect until I said, question. When I ask the question, what does he say? The tape goes like a TV, blanked out TV. And it's like you'd never recorded that section whatsoever. That was really odd. So that was so I told the professor who was asking that in Brazil, I told him that story. He said, I've never heard of an angel stopping an airplane.
I was going to say, that's bizarre. Like, you think there would be a safer way to reach out to you?
You'd think
I'm just going to hijack the plane.
Yeah, like FedEx or, Amazon something.
Sure.
It just didn't. I can't complain. It worked out good for everybody.
Well, it must be a pretty important guy if you got to hijack a bloody plane, passenger airline, just to be able to get your attention. It's mind-blowing. It really is. It really is.
It was odd.
And
sorry.
I was going to say, did you find out what it was he's going to help you with, or how?
He never did say. The details, he gave some details, but most of it was private, and I don't mind telling you this, and I think anyone else in our audience tonight that's had this experiences probably would agree with what I'm fixing to tell you. When you have an encounter like that, and I don't mean alien, I've had encounters with the alien that was reasonably benign to horrific beyond understanding. So I get it. I truly get that. This is nothing that you'd, in most cases, ever want to tell anyone. I mean, it is so personal. It is so it's profoundly spiritual. It really is, and it's it's one of the things you just kind of, one of the cards you hold close to your vest.
It's a different experience for everyone who goes through it. So it's hard to explain because it will always be different with the impact for everyone. We're all individuals, right? We're all different. Amelia, you had a question?
No, I was going to ask you how they appear to you, because for me, it's different every time, and it depends which ones they are. Like I can see if I'm by someone in a hospital, per se, or someone who's passing, I can see them come to take them. They're there long before, and they sit and wait side by side, and they're a particular type. Then the ones that I work with are different as well, and they're all shown to me in a different form. And I believe it's because it's a different level. How do you see them?
Well, people, one of the things that I think for our audience in particular, and myself, in some cases, the angel, we know that we have a sense that it's angelic helping us, whether it's a guardian angel or whatever. There are, I could list, and I can, and I will if you like, at least a dozen instances in my life where I should have been dead. And when I was 5 years old, and there was a public park. We had a group of people, several families, and all the kids just went crazy because they got to go all over the park, and it was a lot of fun. And back then, a long time ago in Midland, Texas, they had in these public parks, they had these heavy iron doors. They had a concrete area, and if the parent would lift up this heavy iron door, and you throw your trash way down in this like 20-foot deep square. That I don't know why they did this way back then, and then the parent could drop the iron door and they would shut. Well, of course, the doors were way too heavy for kids to lift, but of course that doesn't mean anything to little 5-year-old Derrell. So he goes over there, and we get to playing with it, and I figure out how to open the door, and I'm standing there tilted with the door open like that, and then oops, I slip and fall, and the door slams just as I fall into this giant room, which hit the bottom of it. My little hand and my little shoe, and so I'm literally swinging in the dark, back and forth, and all the little kids run out and tell my dad and everybody else, and they come back, and of course they all figure out how to get me out of there and all that without me falling, and scared my dad half to death. But I can name event after event after event. I mean, I was struck by lightning, and there was a witness present when that happened. Once, another incident, I fell out of a tree, landed on my neck. Wonder didn't break my neck.
Sounds like you have an angel on your shoulder.
Well, probably because I'm so careless or something, or dumb or whatever, that somebody's out there trying to protect me from myself.
And keep dusting you off, picking you back up, saying,
a little
pat you
accident
on the
prone.
head, say, little Darrell, stop it.
Just a tad accident prone.
Yeah. Wake up. Yeah.
You're making us work too hard. We're going to remember this.
And I think that many people could describe events where their life literally. My daughter is a good example. She was driving down the road and she heard this voice and it says, "Speed up," and she's like, and she just does it. She didn't know why. She hits it gas as fast as she could, and there was this big truck right behind her, just fixing to crash right behind her. She sped up, and it got her forward. When she, well, obviously wasn't hit with the two children in the back seat. It would probably killed all three of them.
Wow.
But there are many times where people don't quote unquote see the angelic help or anything. They may hear the voice, or they may have an impression or something, and there's nothing wrong with that. And all kinds of stuff. People can have wonderful experiences simply because of an angelic saving their life. My brother is a good example. He was in Hawaii in the Navy, and they were on the side of this cliff. He backed up to it and everything with his little van, and long story short, he got out of the van and he said, I realized something's wrong. And he said, Darrell, he said, hand to God, I swear to it. He said, I'm standing on the air. Wow. And when I realized there's nothing under my feet, I jumped and grabbed the door and everything and pulled myself over and scared, and he said, I'm breathing hard and can't believe I did that. And he said, but what in the world was holding me up when I stood out there he said, I should have fallen a couple hundred feet down the cliff in a beautiful green for sure. He said, what was under my feet in midair? So I looked down and I noticed there's no ground anywhere near me. I got out of the back of the van, and there I am standing till I parked too close to the cliff. And I realized that when I got out.
Wow.
So that just another example of some just amazing things where people are spared, just helped. Wow.
Miracles. Yeah, absolutely. Miracles. Okay, so we've covered angels, which that could be a show that in itself that you could just go on and on about. There's so many stories out there. I'm sure I know I've had a lot of experiences. Amelia's had a lot of experiences. So are there anything that people could, mistake for angels? Because you get some people that are like, oh, the Palladians would be considered almost, some people have called them very divine. Some, can we just bridge that a little bit just so people know that, no, there is very much a difference between them. Don't be fooled by one or the other, or.
That's really a great point. And making distinctions is really important. If you really want to know what's going on, you have to make distinctions, because there are distinctions, not because you want to make them, but because they actually exist. As I said, one of the things that's kind of important is that true angelic beings don't accept worship, and they have very specific language that they use about God and His kingdom. Fallen ones will talk to you about everything in the world, anything you want to talk about. They don't care, because it's a dead giveaway. There's something just talking about, well, the UFOs are here to, they were here to save the planet, fix the ozone hole, and all that.
Mm.
I wonder why is he saying all that? Well, one of the ways you can really kick in and have some fun with that is to start asking certain questions, biblical or otherwise, and he'll veer you off subject if he's not a real an unfallen angel, so to speak. If you're wondering, he'll keep veering you off subject. He will not stay on subject. He will not. It's about him, and it's about his agenda. It has nothing to do with. But so there are people who actually believe that the Nordic aliens, so to speak, these are angels. They look so beautiful, big, beautiful blue eyes and everything.
Fair hair.
Those exact ones, seven entities, 7 of them lined up, including Bigfoot. I doubt probably Bigfoot and all these other aliens are sitting in heaven, saying, let's have a party,
No, exactly. Yeah. That's a little bit
I think they're probably on a ship somewhere doing their own thing, whatever that may be. But the Nordics definitely were there. They are a higher order of the alien hierarchy, and in my opinion, the alien hierarchy are 7 entities, primary entities from literally the Nordic or Pleiadian or whatever people want to call it. They have different names for them, and we could get into that if you wanted to. But basically, these particular entities were, like I said, they're involved in the ship. They were involved in this double mass abduction that occurred in Houston, Texas, and in Florida. 8 people were taken at the same time by separate little craft, and they were all taken, including my senior investigator, Dale, the one I spoke about before. He was taken, and all of them are there, and they see these 7 different alien entities, including Bigfoot, by the way. So everybody there was crystal clear. They weren't angels. There's no question about that. That's alien business, and that's what they were all used to because they're all abductees. So, but some people do, because the Nordic is kind of like the Cadillac model, so to speak, of the or the Ferrari model or whatever, the Corvette Stingray of all the models.
Right.
So yes, there are distinctions, there are differences for sure. But the weird thing is, and your audience may or may not know this, the reptile, these people are really the big bosses. They run the show, and everybody else is terrified of them. That system, okay. There is a view, and it's okay if people have that, but there's a view that you often hear that the Galactic Council in white robes and are all sitting in this long big table and everything. That's what's going on. But in reality, what goes on with the alien is, and what goes on in their headspace is vastly different than what we think. We don't know anything about them in terms of okay, little grade mistake, drop something, for instance, during the middle of a procedure. The second bigger one that looks just like him, he's called the doctor. He's a lot smarter than he is, and he'll look at him and get really mad. And the little one will shake. I mean, he's so scared because they live in a militaristic society in which mistakes are rarely tolerated. And in some cases, we actually know of an alien entity that made a mistake, couldn't get what they were ordered to get, so to speak, and they were no longer with us after that. The next abduction, because Dale asked about that particular entity, where is this? It was a female entity. On top of that, female alien, and they said she's no longer here. She failed at her prospect, and it was they they don't take kindly to. And
Mm.
we have a different sense. It's well, we'll just send somebody else. They don't. That's not the way they work. It's your life literally depends on your blind obedience and fear is a big issue in it. And the Nordic themselves were especially afraid of the reptile who was in charge of the proceedings and so on. And it was just it's much bigger than anyone imagines. It's the 7 entities are amazing in themselves because they're cloned, hatched, made, or manufactured for the purpose of convincing mankind, in my opinion, that they're here from another planet. The fact is, as I mentioned, they were cloned, hatched, made, or manufactured for that purpose. The question should at least anecdotal evidence that they're in fact made, hatched, cloned, or manufactured. The answer is yes. We can get into that if you want to. And the second question is, who made them?
Yeah, who made them?
$64,000 question. And the best answer I can give you on that is I can give you 2 sources. One, your audience will go along with one or the other, but they're almost the same answer. And Sitchin, when he wrote his books, he talked about the ones who came down from the heavens, and that was my first thoughts when I was reading his book for the first time. I realized that I said, if this guy is a Hebrew Sumerian scholar, why can't he translate Hebrew properly? So I called up a friend of mine who Gartik Simms, and I said, I've got a problem here. And I said, I was reading this guy's book in Sitchin. He said, yeah. He said he's got some real problems. And I said, well, I'm not any kind of a scholar in this. I said, but I can tell you that's not what it says in Hebrew. And he said, no, it doesn't. He said they were kicked out. They didn't come down from they came down from the heavens. That's true. But the question is why? They were thrown out. That's why. And I said, so that's so. In effect, I said in the biblical version is they were cast out or thrown
The
or
fallen ones.
however.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. So you've got 2 groups of these fallen angelics, and they're very powerful, magnificent creatures. But the thing about an angelic being, and this is kind of interesting, once an angelic being or sins against their conscience changed. They no longer are quote unquote holy. Their consciousness, they made a decision to rebel completely against that. And that's the reason they were cast out. They're no longer allowed to be a part of that process, so to speak. But Sitchin's got that view, and I think that again, it's just it's 2 different. It's the same view basically, kicked out. Any way you can call it. But for me to make sense of it, it's like if your crew got kicked out of your favorite establishment, I mean, really high class establishment, got kicked out for being rowdy and no good or whatever, or starting fights or whatever, you got kicked out and you wanted to get even with the guy who owned the place, you might want to go over to his house or some particular place that he had that he liked real well and go down there and call some
roll a few heads.
place called Planet Earth.
Yeah,
and they've
roll a
been
few heads.
creating some problems ever since. So that's just my take on it. But Sitchin apparently has a very similar view, and those are the only 2 real views that kind of make any sense, because you study Hebrew, Ugartic, Sumerian, Warkan history, and so on in these ancient languages, and this is what you come up with. So it's although he kind of didn't actually translate, he kind of did some interpretation there instead of translate. But the fact is, you can go out and study it yourself and see where the fallacy he has. But the generic story, the overall view, is that they came down from the heavens, and in my view, they were thrown out, or failed, and so on. So that, in my opinion, those are of the alien. And put it in the alien phenomena, in my opinion, and I'm not the only one who believes this because it is from good evidence for it,
Mm-hmm.
is the contact phenomenon is probably only 150 to 200 years old. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, show me abductions that occurred before 200 years ago. There's just no evidence of it.
Wasn't documented, but when you're looking at Da Vinci, he was said to have had an experience. He disappeared literally off the map for 2 years. He was believed to have had an experience in a cave, and when he came back, he was completely changed. He had all of this knowledge that he never exhibited having before, and that's going way back.
Yeah,
Yes,
you're going back to
I
the
understand
1100s.
But the question is, was it alien? And
Yeah, I don't know.
Contact, or was it something else? Was it a fallen angelic contact, or whatever? Good or bad?
Yeah. I mean,
But
record keeping back then was quite different. If you look at some of the old paintings, for example, you see UFOs, in them. Like there was obviously some sort of contact, or they were at least aware that. I mean, let's face it, there were no
the
planes
UFOs
back
have been
then.
around for a long time. UFOs have been around, and if you look at the petroglyphs and things like that of American Indians 1,000 years ago,
Yes.
they're there.
Mm-hmm.
But the program called contact or abduction wasn't.
Right.
It doesn't mean the entities weren't there; they were.
Yeah.
But the inauguration of this particular program called contact didn't start probably 150 years, 200 at the most.
Wow. Right.
And according to in the mass abduction, in that particular experience, the saying this is just kind of odd, but they really like Dale a lot. They like him because he's compliant, he's obedient, he does whatever they say, and the Nordic being asked him when he was alone. He said, "What is it that you want?" And Dale said, "I want to stay here." And the alien, the Nordic, said, "That's impossible." And he said, "Why?" And the imagery he got out of it is, your thinking is an infestation.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's like
it's that
being
bad.
like verbally slapped around.
And
Or
Dale
Dale.
was just horrified.
Yeah.
He said, "I couldn't understand why when they didn't want me around." He said, "Our thinking it actually would interfere with the process of what they have." And I
Hmm.
understand that. But the second amazing thing was, on the wall there was this picture about 6 foot square, and Dale looked at it for a long time. And he said it looked like Indianapolis roadway. It looked like he said it was a 3-dimensional type map, and he said it looked like a roadway, and he said it was all filled in these little tiny blocks of information, and there was one left that wasn't filled in. And Dale kept looking at it, and finally looked at the Nordic when he came back in the room. He said, "What is that?" He said, "That's our interaction with mankind." And he said, "But that last one," he said, "that's the last 100 years. We're in it now."
Mm-hmm.
And Dale said, of course, now Dale's an engineer, so he think, like most people say, "Well, that was pretty interesting." No, Dale one little there and counts all the other little blocks as best as he can, and he said it came out to about 6,000 years. And I said, "Dale, each one of those sections of time are programs run by the alien and the fallen ones on mankind." I said the alien thing is only the last. It's like 100 years. According to them, it's about 100 years long. We don't know how far we're at the end of it or in the middle. We don't know. We just have no clue about that. But if his information is accurate, there it is. Take it for what it's worth.
Go ahead, Amelia.
Thank you. I really believe that in the times of when the Vatican, in the beginning with the Pope, I believe that there had to be some kind of experiences going on way, way back, like during the time of even Borgia, before they were even in Rome, when they were still in Calabria, and that was Italy at the time. It was called Italia. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if Roman Catholics fled to their church to say and speak in fear, and that it's somewhere documented and kept in those vaults. I find it hard to believe that it wouldn't be. And you're talking way back
The
before Italy
Vatican
was
has
even
everything.
established. I know they do. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a big issue for me because of
Yeah.
my past, my family being of Pisa, the initial starters. My family actually built Pisa. My father's great great uncle is Fibonacci, for Pete's sake. Like, they're all there.
Yes,
I can't.
of course.
I'm terrible at math and I can't draw. So like that just knocks me out of the park. But I could add 13% tax on every purchase. That's about it. But, you know, I have to believe, and I don't even wonder, I really truly believe in my gut that they have records of sightings and they have drawings, and people must have said something, because in fear, they would think it's demonic. They wouldn't think anything of the skies because of the way
True.
they've been
Well,
indoctrinated
that
over
could
the
be.
years.
It maybe it's perception is what it comes down
Yes,
to. What
yes.
were they actually seeing?
They were actually seeing, I believe the church knew exactly what they were seeing.
Well, the
Just saying,
fact is that
the Pope's got a little different position
UFOs have
than
been around
my.
for a long time.
Yes.
They have, and the
Yes.
question is who was in the UFO and why. But the contact experience, the abduction, quote unquote, in my opinion, didn't start until about 100, 150 years ago, that sort of thing. But the fact is, UFOs were around. They're on petroglyphs. They're in drawings. They're in woodblock cut prints from in Germany.
Mhm.
There are all kinds of things that, in fact, there. Some of them are on fire in Dusseldorf, Germany, on fire on the ground, and
Mhm.
there are dozens of them in the sky fighting with each other. If you go to India, and you see the Vimanas at war, the so-called gods. And if you look at the gods of some of these ancient Indian stories, they're they're really UFOs.
Yes. All the way,
And
all the way, all the way back to the pyramids.
Mhm.
We
yeah,
see those,
it's
and
real interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I honestly believe the Vatican hides a lot. It's just my opinion. For those of you who hate me, text me, email me. That's fine, but it's still my opinion. They're hiding a lot, and I'm Roman Catholic, so.
Um, so you have on your website, you have a graph that you call, the basic alien types, and you have the watcher, you have the gray, the brown, the mantis. Now, I'd like to touch on the mantis only because I've had a lot of people in recent months say they've had experiences with mantis, and they're very, very unpleasant experiences.
Mm.
And then you have some ufologists, well, not ufologists, like I guess people who study more contact information, much like yourself. Some of them say, yeah, it's a thing. Some of them are like, nah. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the mantis being is. Let me back up a little bit for your
Yes.
audience. Maybe this will be useful
Okay.
and kind of give them a background with this thing. The best way to describe and see if I can pull up a little drawing. Basically, you can think in terms of the alien as uh, 7 different flavors, but we'll just hit on the major ones. The little gray alien, he's
Mhm.
got an IQ of probably about 80. About 80. He's actually not much smarter than a moron. That's just the truth of it. And some people say, "Well, you're just picking on an alien." I'm not. I'm just reporting the information that we have. And they make huge mistakes. I mean, they can't get your clothes on right. You wake up in the morning with your clothes on inside out, backwards.
You hear
Someone
those
else's shoes
stories.
on.
Backwards in
Yes.
bed.
Wrong shoes. You hear those
Yeah,
stories. So it's them.
that's why people realize something's wrong with his picture. I'm in the wrong bed, the wrong location. They left me outside my house, or whatever. These were picked up in Fort Collins, Colorado, and they were dropped off, truck and all, in Dalhart, Texas. And the wrong guys driving the truck at the time. So, I mean, they make mistakes. That's a little gray. The taller gray, which is about a foot taller than he is often referred to as the doctor. And he's not a real sociable guy. He's kind of
People are pretty
business
fearful
related.
of him.
They're mean. They're nasty. And he's got an IQ of about 135, 140. He's pretty smart. He's pretty sharp. And then you've got another one that I would refer to right next to him, and that would be the praying mantis. Now, he's a lot smarter than those two put together.
Mm. Okay.
He's real sharp, and people they usually describe their experiences with this guy as real super positive or super negative, and or they didn't want to remember. They closed their eyes, just shook, didn't want to know. I met the praying mantis when I was in third grade. I was living in Mayhill, New Mexico, and just a kid, and we had an outhouse. A lot of people probably don't know what those are, but that was a bathroom outside.
Oh,
and
I know what it is.
Yeah,
Yep.
Some of us do know. I went out to use the restroom. I did, and as I shut the door, I like fell clean over because there's that little gray alien standing there outside the door waiting for me. And the next thing I know, I walk inside, get inside. Never told my parents anything. That was on a Friday. Saturday, the next day, I'm out playing in the field like I always do with insects and stuff. I just love nature. And I'm doing something I've never done in my life. I can't understand why I'm doing it. I take grasshoppers by the hundreds and I pull their heads off. I kill them. And I don't do stuff like that. I love bugs, insects. I love animals. I've rescued animals all my life. I don't harm stuff. I just don't do that. And all these little grasshoppers are laying there dead, and I pull their heads off, and I'm like, why am I doing that? So I put one of the little grasshoppers right up next to my face so I can see him really close, and I realized it was a praying mantis. I was getting even, so to speak, remembering the horrificness of it, and it's the wrong bug, is what I'm saying. It wasn't anything like a grasshopper. It was a praying mantis. When I saw the praying mantis for the first time, for the insect, oh my God, that's him right there. That's what he looks like, and he's about 7 foot tall. And anyway, I remembered that event, and that was the side after effects were me killing all those insects, thinking that I'm getting even. That's it. But a second story, which is kind of interesting, a lady came to me and she said she wanted me to work with her, and her husband was there, and anyway, long story short, was in the abduction event as a 7 foot praying mantis is over her and her brother, and she painted a picture. I have that picture painted. He was awake, wide awake, and he painted the picture of her. And she was 100% convinced that all experiences were 100% positive, and anyone that had any experience different than that was a liar, or they were stupid, or whatever. And what was really amazing is she's screaming to the height of her voice, "Leave my little brother alone," screaming and screaming. She never remembered any of that, not any of it.
So they wipe
in
memory.
fact, as soon as when she opened her eyes, she said, "See there, I told you all those events are positive 100%, because I was in the school of higher consciousness and all these wonderful things happened." Well, that's just not true. And she wasn't. And this guy who was awake during the event painted a picture of her there and it showed the mantis over the top of her, just with his tentacles and everything. It just really some scary stuff. Really, really super.
Sorry, do they tend to leave marks behind, like bruises or anything like that?
Yes. We call those UBMs. UBM means unidentified body marks. When a reptile is an example, if somebody tells me, well, the reptile got me the other night, if he gets you, you're going to know it. And I could show, and maybe we'll one of these days, the marks of the different entities that leave. I can usually look at the marks because I know these entities quite well. I can usually look at the marks on a person and can tell you a lot about their experience. Marks on the reptile will often leave these horrific. They'll often leave their. I hate to give that information out because I don't like people knowing it, but they'll often leave a calling card, so to speak, down the middle of your chest, 3 long scratch marks, foot long, and or on the back where you can't reach yourself. I mean, just leave a nice.
Some people would tell
gash.
you that they've been attacked by demonics.
By a demon, yeah. That's the same marking.
They have to say that because they don't know
that they don't know.
They don't know
That's
what
right.
they don't know what this.
There's just one more similarity
is.
that I find interesting. Yeah, interesting.
That is insane.
Yeah, and people they have to use the information they have to say. And people, and I get this a lot from people, and if they push the issue, I'll say, well, maybe you can help me out. What is the definition of a demon? And people that are in the know, that actually know what they're talking about, will say, well, it's a disembodied spirit. That's I said, okay, that's good, that's right, that's correct. How is it that the alien or the reptile has a body? You're by your definition, you've already placed yourself outside that. So, but the question is, do they do bad things? Of course they do. And depending on, and sometimes they like treating other people like wonderfully because they, for whatever reason, and that provides conflict with abduction meetings or support groups and so on, because some wonderful experience. The kid paints this picture of this horrific thing over, and she doesn't know. She's accepted what we call a screen memory over her real memory, and she doesn't. And I didn't tell her any different. I personally would prefer her to think that it was, yay, when she was in school, or higher consciousness and having a great time, and God bless America and all that. I really would rather her not know what happened.
I'm going to pick your brain because I've had 2 people contact me in the course of 6 months who swear that they could see the mantis, but they're pretty much translucent, right? When they come in, and they swear that they just see like flashes of them, and they swear that they get attacked. And one she claims she's just sitting there, and she spends like the night, and she sees they grab her. She goes, I feel like sometimes they get under my skin. I mean, I've had her go, like, you need to go talk to somebody just to be sure. Like, but it's so similar to other things that I'm hearing. Is this something that they can do? I mean, you're seeing something that's pretty much invisible because they're translucent, and they're under attack, and she's always full of bruises.
She's always remembering too, which is
always
a little
remembering.
different.
Yeah.
Well, that is an excellent point, and thank you for bringing that up. And the fact is that many of these people, in fact, a case in point to underscore what you're saying here, a dear friend of mine this is in Washington State. Many, I've known his family for well over 30 years, and her and her son were taken in these events, and she she said she drew the picture of the alien, and she drew a picture of her. She's an artist, a beautiful artist, and she drew a picture of her laying there on her side, looking away because she didn't want to see it. And you can see the silhouette of the entities, and they're luminescent, like she's describing there. Uh, and some people say, well, see, they're light beings. See, they're from another dimension, light beings. See, don't you get it? And I do get it, actually. And when people don't want to see that, your mind does wonderful things for you. It'll do all kinds of things to protect you, all kinds of things, and in some cases let you see stuff that's different. And in one case, I was working a police case. I was working with the individual. The lady kept telling me about, she knew that she had been abducted by aliens. I know, and it insulted me and said, did I question her at great length? And I monitor her breathing, capillary, every detail, every detail of her tone, pitch, and timbre of voice, everything. And I realized that she doesn't know. And so we spent some time together, and finally I get her to open her eyes because I knew her eyes were open in the event. But she can't see anything if you let her play that game, because that's her. So her consciousness, subconscious, is protecting her, and that's great. The only problem is it wasn't an alien; it was a relative who sexually assaulted her. And she did not want to know. It was her uncle, her favorite uncle, did it, and that was the culprit. And so, alien. That's uncle. She loved her uncle. Why would she say bad things about him? But in the other case, where this lady sees these luminescent beings, you can see the outline. One of them is obviously is an alien, and it's a doctor type. And the other one, you can see his head. It's the absolute shape of a praying mantis. Absolute shape of a praying mantis.
So they work together, basically.
One assists the other one. When the praying mantis is in charge, he's the boss. And this guy will do whatever he tells you to do. You do it. And but she drew that in great detail. But she had herself looking the other way because she did not want to know. I said, "Why did you turn your back?" She said, I didn't want to see. I didn't want to know." But she had enough presence of mind to draw where she did the outlines of them, and that was amazing. Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. Well, it's becoming a thing, and usually you always hear about grays, and lately I'm just hearing quite a few stories about the mantis, and I was like, okay, what are they just all of a sudden coming into the forefront? Because there are some people who, getting back to grays, who believe they're highly intelligent, and that they're like, this is what I mean, different end of the spectrum, like the perception, it's really hard to peg exactly what the damn deal is, because it's like,
yes, of course,
everybody's, maybe it's a matter of what they're allowed to remember, but then under hypnosis, right? Under hypnosis, you think that you would have a clearer picture, and people.
It depends on the. John Mack and I discussed in Istanbul, Turkey. I met him the first time in I think it's 2000, and he said, "Oh, Derrell," he said, "I've been wanting to see you for a long time, and heard a lot about you." And I said, "Okay." The short version of the story is this: I told him. He said to me, he said, "Why is it I always get contactees and you always get abductees?" And I said, "Actually, John, I get both." I said, "You need to ask yourself the question, why do I get mostly contactees?" And I said, some of that is due to people who come to you and they hear your viewpoint or whatever, that are, maybe more responsive to the alien, so to speak, like they're superior to us and they're from another planet or whatever. I said, that influences people to know to help you with that viewpoint. And I said, I said, it surprised me when I listened to some of this. I said, could I work with some of the people you worked with that were contactees? When I finished working with them, I found out that you had hypnotized their screen memory. If you hypnotize a screen memory, which is a false memory, that you can go into what is we call a screen dream. You hypnotize the person 100 times after that, and they'll have a never-ending story of the school of higher consciousness and all kinds of neat things that never ever happened.
Interesting.
I said, whenever I've worked with these people, and I realized, I said, when I talk to them and go through this a great deal on a and look at their handwriting, I see things in their handwriting. This gives me clues of what to. And I said, and some of these people I've worked with that turned out you or other people thought were contactees, they're not. They've been hooded. They literally. I'm not saying all of them were, but But in some of these cases they were. And I said, and John, if you hypnotize this person 2, 3, 5, 10 times, I promise you, their screen dream, which is a fake imagery, will go on forever. I mean, they'll tell you story after story. I mean, this is a program that's run in them. These are programs that are set up in abductees and contactees, and people don't know that. And I said, with great respect, I said, because you're a Pulitzer Prize winner, you're a professor of medical psychiatry at Harvard, so I have great respect for all of your accomplishments. I'd really like to know where you took your training. And he said, I didn't take it from professionals. I said, clearly that's true. I said, but he said, I took it from non-professionals. I said, why is that? And he said, well, they were actually better than the professionals. I said, that is often true. I said, the problem is that just because you can hypnotize someone doesn't mean that's memory. It doesn't mean that at all. I said, for instance, I promise you, and I've done demonstrations like this, and I did in California. You might like this as an illustration. And for those of your audience who want to hear or read some of this, they can email me at go on to alienhunter.org and click on it, and they can email me, and I'll send them some free stuff on the difference of what goes on here. But in my demonstration, I had a bunch of psychiatrists, therapists, and said are being sued into multi-million dollars of lawsuits for treating people with ritual sexual abuse, as an example. In other words, you're telling these people, their parents sexually abused them, ritually sexually abused them, they were satanic, or whatever. I said, that sounds great, except in some of these cases, like in one case in particular, I said the parents that supposedly did this to their adult child when they were a child, they weren't even in country when it happened. When the jury comes back, guess what they're going to do to you? Because now you're dealing with false memory, and you're the professional, and you're supposed to know better, and you don't. I said, that's what I'm talking about, John. I said, these people don't understand this. So anyway, so I did this demonstration. I took a hypnotist out of the audience, a volunteer. Have a seat. I mean, she was in all kinds of, everybody was laughing their heads off. They're having so much fun with it. And she said, I said, so I brought her out of hypnosis, said, tell me about your session. She said, well, I was on this bus. It got cold. It was hot. It was freezing. The wind was blowing and everything. And I said, okay. And she's telling it just like it just happened and consciously. And I said, pretty exciting, wasn't it? She says, yes, it was. It really. And I said, she said, and tell me about the bus driver. She said, well, he had this really short, stickly hair. It was really weird. I said, sweetie, I never described the bus driver at all. I said, my point in doing this with you in front of this audience of therapists is this. This is called recall, not memory. You never were Elvis Presley. And never, there was no boss. And I had to explain that to her because it was so real to her. I said, that's called recall. It's like memory, but it isn't. You weren't Elvis Presley. You weren't in a bus. None of that happened. She's like, oh. Then I had her sit down, and I said, thank you for that. And everybody clapped their hands and everything. I said, now I'd like to bring a lady and a friend of mine from the back who has a relationship with the Nordic beings. And she thinks they're the best things since sliced bread. They are wonderful. They are beautiful. They're handsome. Oh, beautiful blue eyes. They're so fantastic. And they're wonderful. And I said, well, we're not going to hypnotize you or anything. I just want to talk to you. And she said, okay. She said, look at me. And don't pay attention to the audience. I said, now I want to talk to you for a moment about your experiences. She described wonderful, I mean, elated, wonderful experiences with this. Oh, it's wonderful. And I said, that's all. That sounds wonderful and powerful. And that's, I'm glad to hear this, that you've had wonderful, positive, and powerful experiences. She said, yes. And everybody's like, oh, okay, well, what is he going to do now? And I told her, I said, in a moment, if you, with your permission, I want to touch you on the hand right there, one spot. And she said, sure. And I said, I took her back to the very first event when she met the Nordic, the one she loved. And she starts screaming bloody murder to the height of her voice until I have to stop her from screaming. That was her first memory. She doesn't know. When I stopped her from screaming and got talking to her again and everything, and got her calmed down, everything. The wonderful events with your Nordic shit. Oh yes, wonderful stuff. Everything's just powerfully wonderful. I love him. He's wonderful. She didn't have a clue. She didn't even know her first event was that horrific, and that's okay. But they use screen images and screen memory to confabulate another story because they don't want you to remember the real stuff.
So basically,
needless to say,
are there any good ones?
Therapists lined up. There were therapists lined up wanting to know, would you come out here and teach this? No, because I said, because you don't want to get sued anymore for the stuff. Yeah. I said, you're hypnotizing these people's screen images, or you're actually inserting your own screen images on these people and then hypnotizing them as if they're real. And says you're going to get sued and you're going to lose in court. Hypnotizing, you don't automatically have memory. You have whatever's in their head. It doesn't matter whether it's real or not. It'll come out that way.
Okay, so essentially, you don't really believe that there are good ones or good experiences. What do you make of people who come back and they've been healed from? Because there's stories where people come back, they're abducted, they come back healed of, let's say, cancer, for example.
Sure, good point. Well, first of all, I do believe people come back with good events. There are some abductees, or especially contactees, that have positive experiences. Some of them I've worked with, some of their events are not positive, but they don't remember those, and that's okay. Right. But they do remember some of the positives. Some of them do have positive events. I'm not saying that all of that's a screen memory, it's all cover up. I don't say that.
No, I'm just trying to get to break it down for people.
So the second thing is, you bring up a really good point, is how do people come back? Let me set this up a little differently. A doctor who's a specialist in neurology called me up one day and she said, Mr. Simms, have you had, with your abductees, have you ever had abductees that had injuries that were, in your opinion, covered up? And I said, oh, absolutely. Absolutely. She said, I know that's true because some of the people that are your abductees are my patients. And some of them have injuries that, in other words, a car wreck where they broke their leg and everything and that sort of thing. So, but I find that I've got to do x-rays on their arm and find out they've got a broken arm too. But that arm was broken long ago and there's no medical record of it. I said, So I've got ribs, and there's broken ribs. If you've ever had a broken, even a bruised rib, you walk in slow motion and you can hardly breathe.
Yes,
To
that's
have
right.
broken ribs on one side and never knew it, there's no such creature. So the question is, how does that happen? Like one lady told me, she says, "The aliens healed you, don't you get it?" And I said, "No, ma'am. What I get is that they fixed the problem because they didn't want me to remember." That's the truth of it. The fact is, my ribs are kicked in. I remember the event.
Oh my God, I had
I
bruised
said,
ribs.
so
I couldn't
I
breathe.
said, you have. I said, you have no idea. I said, don't tell me my events. I know what happened to me. I said, we talk about yours. That may be a different story. But some people do come back if they've been healed from whatever. And according to the doctor, her viewpoint is this: that for other things. And I said, well, and I know for a fact, in my case, the VA hospital absolutely proved that I had injuries that were never a part of my medical record whatsoever. And two of them of me alone, and other people, and some people have been healed. I also know, this is really weird. There was a lady who contacted us, is a friend of mine. Her face, she developed a special kind of cancer in her face, and her face began to contort. And this sounds so weird. No one's going to believe this, but I don't care because I saw her and I saw the photographs. Her face was starting to. It was the contortion of the face was such, because she got a kind of a real narrow chin anyway, and her face was contorting in such a way she actually looked like the alien. It was horrible.
Oh wow.
Wow.
And the cancer is a killing kind. And anyway, we prayed about her for several months, 6 or 7 months, and the cancer went away, and we're all excited about it and everything. But you'll never convince her that the alien didn't give her the cancer, if that makes any sense.
Instead
You'll
of the
never
other way
convince her.
around.
Exactly. But in some cases, people do come back, and like I did. My ribs, I never knew I had broken ribs until the radiologist did a body scan on me and says, "When did you get the broken ribs?" Of course, I lied and said, "I don't have any broken ribs." You don't tell a guy that makes $250,000 a year looking at radiology, he doesn't know what he's talking about, because you do. There they are. And of course, I did know, and I just didn't want him to know.
Right. Right.
But there are people that do come back from their event. But by the same token, this is what the neurologist was getting at. I had one lady that I talked to, and this was in Arizona, in Phoenix, years ago, back in 1991, I think. And I said, "If you ever had any injuries you couldn't account for?" And she said, "Oh, yes." And I said, "One of them when I was a child." I said, "Well, tell me about it." She said, "Well, my mom and dad had fallen or whatever, and they took me to the doctor to make sure everything's okay. And he did an X-ray, and he said he saw broken bones in her arm, and said, when did she get hurt?" And they said, "She's never had any broken bones in her life." Well, the doctor at that point called the police officers. I mean, this kid's got broken bones, and the parents don't know anything about it. But that was part of the alien program with her, and they injured her. And she said they almost put my mom and dad, who were upright, straight-laced citizens, almost put them in jail.
Wow.
But since she said I was the reason they didn't, because I told them over and over and over, I've never had a broken bone, but no memory of any of it. So we have a lot more cases of those than we do people that come back healed or fixed or whatever.
That's
and there
interesting.
are people who do have that. That does happen. So I believe in the data. Whatever the data shows, that's
Absolutely.
it. Either way.
Absolutely. Amelia, do you want to get to some of the chat questions while we have a bit of time?
Great. Thanks. I'm going to go over because I screenshot them. Okay. Christian Corralejo asked a question for your guest. What kinds of aliens does Derrell Simms have good record of from his research.
Which I think we've covered some, didn't we?
Yeah.
The seven primary entities, and the reptile, the gray, the doctor type, the reptile, the Nordic, the Bigfoot has been seen on board the craft. People say, well, that's not, that nothing to do with aliens. Yeah, actually, he was on board a craft that was 50 miles thick, 600 miles across. We have a film of, we think, of the actual craft that some people in Japan were filming. We think they filmed our abduction craft during that time. And anyway, we got it on video. That's an amazing thing in itself. But Bigfoot was there with all of them. They're all lined up.
So there's a theory that's
Bigfoot doing out of the forest on board the craft.
Yeah, there's a theory that's coming to light.
Partial of the program.
Right.
And the other question is from Stimulate. Does Derrell believe that some of these UFOs are actually conscious spiritual entities and not mechanical vehicles?
Good question.
Wonderful question. I really, you're getting into one of my TV programs where one of my assistants asked the question. Do you think are these interdimensional, or are they physical craft, or this, that, and whatever? The fact is that it depends. It depends, and what I talked to the lady about in this particular part in the show is that some craft, they're right there and there. You can see them photographed and everything, and then they disappear. The question is, where'd they go? And I talked to a DSP satellite specialist, and I told him about go to another dimension usually, and he got real red in the face, and he said they're actually still there. They're just in the infrared or the ultraviolet range, out of visibility. They're actually still there. And in some cases, to answer this person's question, the fact is that some of them will literally go to another dimension. They literally will leave this dimension to another one. So in some cases that happens. Some of the entities people will describe, well, there was a blue light and the alien came walking out of the light, or they whatever, and they'll describe this. And I said, what you don't understand is actually you're describing the transport mechanism for the alien. I said the blue light is the part of the light spectrum it's slowing down, and that's he's getting there. He's vulnerable. If you stabbed him or hit him or something like that, you can injure him or kill him. As long as he's in that light form, transferring and everything, you're not going to hurt him, so to speak. But once he hits that's why they paralyze you and scare you or give you screen memories, or you're in the school of higher consciousness, because that way you're so focused on whatever it is they're doing, scared or happy or whatever, you don't have a clue, and you're under their total control at that point.
And the question, Amelia?
No, that's it. There's a lot of comments. They're commenting and sharing stories, but they're really enjoying you. You've got a lot of fans in there.
Well, you've got a lot of smart people out there, and people just want answers. They really do. And I'm not here to tell people it's got to be this. It can't be anything else. I simply say that and handwriting and all these other skills I bring. I call it my 7 hats. I have 7 hats that I use to look at evidence. What I believe means nothing to me. What I can prove, what the evidence shows, that's the real key. And that's the information I like to give people, and then they can draw their own conclusions. I don't have any disciples or want to prove my point to people or whatever. It's just information, and it's whatever you want to do with it, and hopefully it's good information that they get and can collate themselves.
Well, in conclusion, what do you think they want? Hybridization, DNA, pain in the ass? Which one?
Going with the last.
Willie Struber.
I'd pick D, all of the above.
Could have stressed that one a little better than joke. Somebody sent me a cartoon the other day, and it said it's like alien cornflakes or something, and a cereal or something. It's certainly a little alien on the outside laughing, and it said anal probe inside.
There we go.
Oh my gosh, who dreams this stuff up? And
oh, that's
Screen
the,
memory.
that's the old
Screen
joke.
memory.
Oh, so anyway, I wow.
Okay, let's just go with pain in the ass.
Yeah, let's leave it at that. Good night. Oh my. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
The why they're here, they're never going to tell you. If they were totally truthful and were going to tell you the truth, why would they need a screen memory?
Right.
That's a good point.
Why does
would
he
they
want
need
to look
cover
like
it up?
Casper the Friendly? Those are images that to lead you astray. And if I can put a real fine point on it for those who kind of are not getting the message yet, I have a presentation I do just for doctors and people in the medical field. That's all, and on human mutilations. I'll tell you what, there are people that get up and leave the room when they see them. When you see an elderly woman, 80 years old, skinned alive in her own bed, from her contact experiences, not a drop of blood in that bed whatsoever, just like a cattle mutilation, but her skin completely removed. You have to wonder what scientific, medical, highbrow experience from another dimension needed to happen to that woman that they seem to enjoy. There's something seriously wrong with it.
And do you know which species did that? Like, is there any indication? Is there any indication of species that was responsible?
Let me put it this way. Based on my experience with the alien will do whatever they're told to do by their owners, fallen ones, in my opinion, who are capable of anything.
Right.
If they're told to make you believe they're from Zeta Reticuli in the School of Higher Consciousness is where you're being trained, they will do that with great enthusiasm. And when they finish with you, you'll absolutely believe every word of that, whether it happened or not. By the same token, if they're told to mutilate you, they'll do it with equal enthusiasm. They have no emotion about that. None. It's just their job. They don't have any feelings for it.
Right.
I have found in my just to record the feelings, the passions, the emotions, whether sexual, whether physical, whether even children who have seen mutilations of cattle on board the craft, as an example, describe the cows bellowing. In other words, they didn't kill them. They left them alive until they finally removed all the blood, or most of the blood from them, or whatever. And it just when you hear this stuff, and you even hear it from children in great detail, you have to ask the big question: what scientific rationale did they have for doing that?
That's right.
It doesn't make, especially when it comes to humans. No. Like, I'm sorry, when it comes to humans, they're going to do something like that to you or somebody else. I don't care who they are out there. Nobody deserves that. And
no, it's more torture.
Record the passions, people that they sexually assault, people that are mutilated, people that are in terror, even your extreme fear. People describe fear beyond any understanding they've ever experienced, and they're just shaking like that daughter-in-law of mine. They record all that for someone else later on. We think that actually is used by someone, fallen one or whatever. They enjoy it, and they send them out to collect those emotions, passions, terrors, and so on.
How do you stop it? How do you stop it?
Well,
are they stoppable?
In my opinion, there are things that can be done. I have a thing I put together on it's called the Alien Hunters Techniques of Self-Defense, and in that I've got like probably 20 different methods and even like the last one I'll tell you is a lady I saw at a conference broke my heart. I could tell that she was Pentecostal by the way she dressed. A very, very beautiful woman, and she had two beautiful little girls, and they must have been probably twins, 3 years old. I mean, beautiful little girls. And a woman looked at me, and she was in tears, and I could read her like a book. And I said, and I looked at both her children, at one and the other, and she saw me do that very clearly. I said, both of them? She said, just shook her head, yes. And I said, it's been going on for a while. And she said, yes. So I told her techniques that she could teach her children to use to thwart an abduction. And do I have the magic bullet? All events will always go. No, I don't. I don't have. But there are people and got relief for the first time in their entire life. And some of them are fun, and they're funny to use, especially on the little gray, because he's only got an IQ of about 80, and he's real easy to outsmart if you know what to do.
I got to get your book.
I know, that's what I was just thinking. I have two more questions.
Okay, go ahead.
From Stimulate, both of them. Are you able to induce or know others who can induce at will a contact or abduction?
No, not really, because the contact and abduction experience is something they do. Now we do have people that sense when it's coming, like when they're coming, they'll get real nervous and everything, and they know they're coming or they know they're there. It's like the pheromonic or the scent of precedes them, and these people often know it. My daughter-in-law knew it in those three events. She knew they were there. She knew. She woke up and knew it. And but to signal them, and I do have people that write me from time to time. This is really interesting. Could you tell me how to get abducted?
Oh my goodness!
If I knew how to tell you, I wouldn't anyway. I said, you're looking for problems you don't know anything about. I said, if you're lucky, I said, you'll get a screen memory that will be pleasant, positive, and you were in the school of higher consciousness and all kinds of stuff. If you weren't, I said, you'll be like us, the rest of us who did remember. And you're not going to like when that praying mantis gets over you. You're not going to like this.
No, it reminds me of people who seek out demons. He also asks, have you had any cases of contact initiation using the Ouija board or automatic writing?
No, I've not had any. My contact events were due to simply the fact that I think in some cases the families, they follow the family lineage. And I'm an abductee. My son's an abductee. I think my dad was. My brother's an abductee. None of the women in our family were abductees, only the men.
Wow.
And not all the men, but and that's unusual. Usually it's only one person in a family or two or three people in the lineage. But generally speaking, that's real unusual. What we have found is that we have statistics on this. We have a lot of, if you want to come at it from a science point of view, 45% of the people taken are Native American, Indian, Irish, Celtic.
Yeah.
Is there a reason for that? Oh, sorry.
Me one time, she says, in my opinion, yes, that's another whole session. But yes, but the people, the first question I'll ask them when they write me and say, well, I've had these experiences and so on. First question I'll usually ask them, do you have any, give me your genetic background. And they'll say, well, I'm Jewish or I'm black or I'm whatever. And I said, okay, but most of us are not pure anything. Most of us are kind of like a Heinz variety of all kinds of stuff. And they'll say, oh, I'm my great grandmother or grandfather was Cherokee Irish, and you know, and I'll just laugh. And I said, how in the world do you think I would know that? And 45% of them, when I went to Turkey, of all places, they said, Mr. Simms, we loved your presentations. The best I made one big mistake. I said, what's that? The big mistake is you said 45% of the people are Native American Irish, and that's just not true. We're all Turks. I said, no, I said, my statistics are correct. A few years later, a professor at Ankara, which is the capital of Turkey, came to the United States and did a wonderful study. He took DNA samples of Native Americans in the North and Northwest, took them back to Turkey, and then took samples of blood from Turks, various Turks around the country, and compared them and found that the Turks are Native American as well. When I came back to Turkey, they said, oh my God, you were right, Mr. Simms. We really are Native American. I said, the statistics are correct, my friend. I don't care whether you're a Turk. I don't care what you are. I said, 55% are, and you are too. And anyway, they loved it that they were all Native.
Well, definitely interesting, and I wish we had another hour. But the good news is I am just checking my schedule, and you're back June 3rd. So I've thought ahead because I had been through your website when I contacted you the first time, and I went, this guy's got to be at least 3 times. So, but it was fascinating. There's just so many other things I'd love to touch on, and just so little time. So with that being said, I want to thank you again for joining us and blowing our minds again. I'll have lots to ponder, and I'll have to definitely get that book. And I look forward to the next time you're on. How can people find you? And what do you have to come? Now's the time to plug. Just plug yourself.
Well, they can find me at alienhunter.org. And the bottom line is that you just go there, and if you click on Alien Hunter, it'll email me automatically, and you can ask any of your questions. A lot of the information I have is free, and it's glad to give a lot of it away. And we do have a video that is about an hour and a half long, and it is absolutely got some of the most unbelievable, amazing evidence. We have a picture of an alien in the back seat of a car abducting one of our abductees. I was blown away when my abductee sent that to me.
Wow.
And the film was taken by the city of Los Angeles. Thank you, LA.
Wow.
I shared that on our page. I shared that on our page. Wow. This week you posted it, yes.
That's great stuff. Yeah, it's great stuff. Anyway, you're welcome to write me and ask any questions you like. If I don't answer you, it's because I've got about 100. I get about 100 emails a day, but otherwise I'll answer your question. And if I don't answer, email me again because I didn't get it. It's that simple. Because I do answer all my emails.
And he's quick, just saying.
How does one get help if they feel that they're being abducted and probed? And
that's really an important one. Write me, and I will talk to you. And if I feel like there's a specific thing, I'll help you with your questions, of course. And if I feel that we need to go further with that, I'll send you about a 20-page questionnaire that is extremely invasive on a personal level. I mean, it gets into every aspect of your life. And because people read it and they start asking questions, like, read my mail. You mean like I know exactly what's happened to you? And I said, trust me, I do. I said, there's not anything you're going to tell me I don't already know. Thousands of people. Thousands of people.
No.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And
you guys are awesome. Thank you for inviting me.
You're awesome. You made our 100th show today. Thank you. Our 100th this way.
That's what I'm talking about.
Good.
Amelia, you and Michelle are awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We adore you. Can't wait to have you again.
Well, I'll see you on June 3rd.
You will. Thank you, Derrell.
Absolutely. Hopefully we'll be out of lockdown.
Yeah, maybe.
I pray you will. I really do.
Right. Thank you, Derrell. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we've come to another awesome segment here in the Outer Realm. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. Huge thank you to Derrell Simms for joining us on our 100th segment. Thank you to Joe Montaldo, who I know is taking care of us behind the scenes. Remember to stop by the United Public Radio YouTube channel and subscribe. While you're there, go on over to the membership. Yeah, get some really good, juicy stuff you can't get on just a plain old subscription. And feel free to stop by the Outer Realm Facebook page, follow us on Instagram, and see what's going on. Amelia is really good at keeping up with everything and keeping it all really interesting. You're not going to see the same thing twice. So don't forget, join us tomorrow night as Vicki Monroe joins Amelia and I. You're not going to want to miss that segment. She's really delightful, and she's got a really long career of a lot of great stuff. So until then, we'll see you tomorrow. Behave yourselves. Good night.